Okay. We're all present, so the next item on the agenda, there's no votes to be taken. We'll have the assessor report, please.
Okay, so I'd like to present the assessor's report for April 2025. So I've revised the 2024 grand list numbers to show, as you all know, the RTM passed the local ordinance for increasing the depreciation schedule on motor vehicles. I've included the new grand list totals for you. And instead of, we went from an increase of 270 million to roughly 421 million on your increase on your overall grand list. Basically, an increase to 1.16%. Okay, so in addition, so on Friday, we mailed out the income and expense forms to all commercial properties who lease out commercial space. Those are due back on June 1st. We're in the midst of our senior application period. To date, we've received about 123 of them. We still have about 85 or so outstanding. We have been calling them. We will make sure that we get all our seniors in by, the due date on that is May 15th. Okay, anybody have any other questions for me?
Any questions? Starkington.
The building permits, I see they're up from last year by more than, well, what about at least 15%? But the commercial shows it's down, but do we know what percent of each year are tax exempt and what percent are taxable?
Not at this moment, but I certainly can figure that out. Will do.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'd accept a motion to accept. Mr. Selps moves.
Second.
Ms. Tarkington seconds, so we accept the assessor's report. Any objection, unanimous consent? Seeing none, that's 12-0-0. Thank you very much for everything. Okay, now we move on to the requests for budget adjustments. These were because of the logistics of the budget committee being this afternoon and the full meeting being this evening. I put these on as non-routine, but unless anybody objects, I suggest we make them routine because that was the recommendation of the budget committee, which passed both of them unanimously. So I will read them out. PW 10, DPW, $125,000 release of conditions for the Shore Road sidewalk. PD 5, Police, $551,000 release of conditions regarding overtime.
And you made that as a motion? And I'll second that.
I'll move those two items.
And I'll second.
Ms. Tarkington,
Can I just, as a point of procedure, can you move those two items and recommend, and ask that they be placed as routine? And then we take a vote on whether or not they are routine, and then we can take up the vote.
I think it's easier just to do two different appropriations or release of conditions.
I'll make the motion to treat these as routine applications, both of them.
I'll second that. Any objection to treating these as routine? So that's 12-0-0.
Thank you.
Okay, then I'll move adoption of the two items, PW 10 and PD 5.
And I'll second that.
And Mr. Chair, what were the conditions that were satisfied that we are now releasing?
They're in the packet.
Yeah, it's in the packet. The Shore Road sidewalk was to have a public hearing, which they did a couple of weeks ago. And to have gotten through to the design so that we understood, the impacts on surrounding properties. It turns out they only have to have an easement on one property. So those were the sort of primary conditions. On the police, the condition was that the department come back and report on its usage of overtime. And we had that report from the chief this afternoon. And he's confident that he won't have to come in as he did last year for any extra money for overtime. And he pointed out that even though they did last year ask for it, it, they didn't actually have to use it because they had salary savings.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, sir. So is there any objection to unanimous consent on PW 10 and PD 5? Seeing none, I moved it and
And then I
Tarkington
seconded it.
seconded. So those are approved 12-0-0. Mr. Menarski, the Comptroller's report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, BET members. Just don't move. The Comptroller's Report, I'll start out at the top of page 1, an update on the American Rescue Plan. As you all know, the $31.4 million needed to be obligated by December 31st, which I've reported a couple of times. However, I bring it up because of the fact that we've found out nationally that the U.S. Treasury is very strict, and they actually sent out an app called pay.gov, and there are a large number of towns, cities, counties, states that haven't spent all their money. And the reason I bring that up is we do have one project, which is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We did give them we did obligate $1.1 million, and as noted in the Treasurer's report, we clawed back about $414,000, and we left them with about the difference of over $600,000. There's no, they haven't spent any of the money. Now, they did lead us to believe that they had 5, 6, or 7 of the developers in a situation where they were working on a revolving loan. However, I'd like to point this out because the one project of the 48 that we have, which is the Housing Trust, is now at risk, and we're at the mercy of the auditors making a judgment. Let me back up a second. The U.S. Treasury relies through the single audit on the auditors to audit our programs. So if they decide that this doesn't qualify as an obligated program, we would be at risk of being clawed back or repurposing that. So that's something that needs to be brought up to the forefront. And I know through Ms. Tarkington, through her efforts last year, we did make, I should say for a couple of years,
Right.
inform them that they had an obligation to spend this money. I know it's bad news, but I'm pointing that out to you because it could become an issue. Any questions on that before I move on?
I do have a question. Is there a way we can think of a new repurposing in the event that we don't feel confident that the money will be used by the affordable housing?
Yes, there is. You can repurpose it to a pre-existing project where is that mine?
Yeah.
There's a pre-existing project where the monies were spent before December 31st of last year, obligated and spent, but you would be taking that money away from them. So there is that option, and that's why I'm putting that on the table, that this has to be addressed.
So
We'll follow up again.
how do we plan on addressing it?
We'll
Ms.
follow up,
Tarkington.
and we'll have them come back to the Budget Committee.
The Budget Committee. Yeah, I think it should come back to the Budget Committee. Absolutely.
Yeah. I hate to do that to them because they really worked hard on this.
Pete,
Any question?
I also read that the Department of Education is clawing back ESSER funds, but have those all been spent or?
As a matter of fact, we got the balance of the ESSER funds in the last 2 or 3 months. I think they're about 99% spent, but they're not in jeopardy that I'm aware of. But they're also subject to audit to make sure it's, and they're in a different situation where we got the money up front. They're in a reimbursement process.
Yeah, I know, but I think that the Department of Education has sent letters out to Connecticut towns saying that they're not going to get the funds or
Correct.
something like
No,
that. So I
we-
didn't know whether we were affected.
ESSER 1 was quick, it was a small amount, was spent real fast. ESSER 2 was spent real fast. ESSER 3 was the big one, where we got over $9 million. And if you recall, a couple of years ago, where one of the clerical people asked for the balance and got a wire transfer for over 9 million, and we had to return it because we were only entitled to about 900,000. Any questions on the ARPA? I'll move on the bottom of the page, the RSM presented the annual financial report to the audit committee. It's on the agenda for later this evening for a vote to accept. They haven't finished the single audit. They're about a week or two away from that. It doesn't have the same importance as the ACFR, where you have to issue that to a different repositories. They are scheduled to come before the audit committee on June 12th. They're going to combine their presentation on the single audit and couple that with their annual presentation for next year's audit. So they'll close out the single audit and they'll do a presentation for next year's audit. And one more anecdotal little story. You all go on your iPhones or you watch the stock market and you see it go up and down. I saw an interesting, I'm on a newsletter through Munistat, our financial advisor, and we got $40 million general obligation bond at 2.59% in January. April 4th, a five-year bond issue, AAA muni bond was being issued or sold at 2.59. 4 days later, it went up 100 basis points to 3.59. So talk about, just, it's scary, just. It's for all you wonks, that you people that go into the 15-year CIP and you want to put in their interest rates. It's just scary what's happening both on the stock market side, and there's also the risk that's on the borrowing side. But I'll open it up to any questions on the.
Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Cowell?
Some of the reason that happened incidentally is because
Is mic on?
Your mic's not on.
by municipal participants.
Your mic's not on.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Some of the reason that happened is because there's concern by investors that municipals may lose tax exemption. So they're discounting in much higher interest rates because municipalities may not be able to, there's a higher probability that municipals may not be tax exempt. So there's a big reason why
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
occurring.
It's scary. It just.
It's scary, exactly.
I don't think that's been proposed anywhere.
It's all over the muni market. It's all over the muni market. That's why the muni market has been
Well, I
so
understand that,
volatile.
but I don't think it's been proposed anywhere.
Whether it's been proposed or not, the markets are discounting that
Got it. All right,
into
Mr. Cowell?
pricing.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. Is this the end of your report, or you still have more to go?
Correct. Yeah, no, I've opened, yes, it's potentially the end. I've opened to questions.
Okay, so one question I have is, given the turmoil, we were talking about this with Chair of the IAC committee, Ms. Aurora, but it might be nice just to get some kind of understanding, given the turmoil in the markets, and, it seems the likelihood that we're not going to be hitting our return expectations in the retirement fund. So it'd be nice just to get some kind of estimate from our actuary on what the impact might be on the ADEC. I know that it's smoothed over time, but maybe he could just give us just take a quick look and give us some range of possibilities or something.
Well, Scott, I would just say from our meeting last week, the market's already had, as you
Yeah,
know, maybe we wait on that until
Right.
we get
The
closer to
only-
fiscal year end.
Yes, well, I mean,
I mean, things change daily, so I would say just to not, we
right.
could be in a different situation in
We could
May.
be. It's just that right now, we are, we're not that far from fiscal year end, and we're below the return number, that's all, so.
But I don't think we're below the June 30th value, are we?
No, it's just that we have built into our assumption, we have an,
6 3/4.
yeah, we have an assumed annual return.
No, I
that gets
understand
built in.
that, but
So if you're below that, your ADEC has to go up. So it's not that you have to be below value, you just have, if you're below what your assumed rate of return is, that's all. So,
I was ready for this one. I got an email at 4:39 this afternoon. Our year-to-date on the portfolio is a 1.8% return, okay? We've got the hurdle is 6%. We got a little bit over 700 million. We're down to, today, we're at 660 million. Granted, the trailing private equities are, some of them are valued at September 30th, some are valued at December 31st, so they're flat as of now. We've got the defensive with the treasuries, okay? We do, every July, we get a presentation from the actuary. He comes in and gives his presentation. What we have built in is 5-year smoothing, okay? We've got that bad year in there in 22 where we had over a 20-something% loss. So then you potentially could have 2 bad years in that 5-year, okay? So we do an actuary report. We're going to smooth the loss. It looks like it's going to be a loss. We just haven't quantified it yet. What's going to happen, though, is the July 1st actuary report presents at ADEC, just like the OPEB report, and I don't have any updates. I'm going to leave that to Natasha and Nisha in her IAC. We'll get better numbers in the next meeting. That won't hit the ADEC until the next year, 26, 27. So you've already got your good ADEC number for the budget you just passed. But no, it's bad news.
but it's smoothed out, so the only problem is that we also had a very good year in 2020, I think it was, 2020.
The last two.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
okay, no, but we had one before, we had a bad 22, but
yeah. Yeah, now,
but my point is that once that rolls off, you lose that.
yeah. Now, just to throw some more gasoline on the fire, if you look at the back of the actual report, Leslie, I mean, a lot of people rely on that. And there was an analysis, what happens if the year number 1 comes out with a certain percentage return, and he projected. If you remember the back of the actual report, it was excellent, where the ADEC was going to go way down to like $10 million. Yeah. I mean, it's just.
That changed, yeah.
Also, the retirement board could also change the smoothing period to back to 10 years, which it used to be, if I remember that correctly. Maybe in years, years of loss, we do 10 years. Years of a
You
gain,
could
we do
also
5
increase,
years.
you can increase the discount rate, you can change the amortization from 10 years, like the state did, but it's not going to happen.
okay.
So I move that we accept the controller's report?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Leslie Tarkin and seconded by Leslie Moriarty to accept. Any objection to unanimous consent? Seeing none, that's 1200. Treasurer's report, please.
The numbers, I don't have any comments. I'll answer any questions. We've got over $300 million, $331 million. So we're rich as far as cash flow, and we're in good shape. Any questions?
Any
on the
questions
treasurer's
on the
report?
treasurer report?
Move acceptance.
Leslie
Second.
Moriarty moves acceptance. Leslie Tarkenton seconds. Any objection to unanimous consent? Seeing none, That's 1200. Thank you, Pete. Okay, there are no reports from any liaisons or special projects. So we'll move to old business, which is blank. New business, we have acceptance of the annual comprehensive financial report.
I'll speak for David. The Audit Committee last week approved the annual comprehensive financial report as of June 30th, 2024. As I was stated, we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to start working on the 25 report with a presentation from the auditors on June 12th. What's lacking is the single audit, which will come before you at the June meeting for an approval. As I stated before, the single audit doesn't have the same importance as the annual comprehensive finance report. So you have before you acceptance of the 2024 ACFR. And I'll take any questions if I didn't cover it in the controller's report.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to accept it. Mr.
Second.
Alfano moves. Ms. Tarkington seconded. She beat you to it. Any objection to a 1200 vote? Seeing none, 1200. Thank you. Next is new business, a request of Ms. Fasciotis for a discussion on the HR committee RFP.
Well, actually, it's just a report of the HR committee RFP. As I reported last meeting, the HR committee approved an RFP by a vote of 400, and that's where it stands at the moment.
Any discussion on this? Any questions? Ms. Moriarty?
No, I think, so there's action by that committee. Typically, we would move ahead with it, but I don't believe this board should be moving ahead with that project until the issues between the HR committee and our director of HR are resolved.
That is confidential information that you were talking about right now, so I don't believe that
it
it's
is
a discussion. Yes, it is.
I was told
It
it was not
is.
confidential.
It is.
I told.
Why is it
It is
confidential?
not confidential.
It's an HR matter.
I don't think it's an HR matter.
Well, if you'd like to discuss that, I certainly will, but I honestly don't think that that has any bearing on anything with respect to this RFP.
Well, but why are we why are we putting it on the agenda is my
I-
question.
I was told by the chair of the BET that it had to be on the agenda. All I'm doing is reporting.
I'm sorry, I did not tell you that. You made a request to put this item on.
I disagree with that, and I can go back and I will explain. I mean, I can show you your emails. This was a request that was asked to be put on the agenda for discussion. There is
you.
no reason for this RFP to be discussed by this board. We have not done that with other RFPs. Again, I don't know why it's on the agenda.
Because you requested in an
Yeah.
email last week.
Because
So let me ask a question.
No, I did not insist. You requested.
Okay.
Let me ask a question then. This RFP approved by the HR committee for a scope of work that has not been discussed by the full BET. I would expect that the next step in the process would be it would come before the full BET.
I would ask you.
And then the full BET can determine if we should proceed.
I would ask you, what RFPs have been discussed by the full BET in the past? I know that there was an IAC RFP that was put out that had no discussion on this by this board. There are other RFPs that have been put out by committees that have had no discussion by this board, and yet you're singling out one RFP because you have an issue with the HR committee.
No, we don't, Ms. Moriarty doesn't have an issue with the HR committee. The town HR director has an issue with the HR committee, plus
And
the
that's
fact.
between the town director of HR and whatever it is that is going on there. It has nothing to do with this board.
Well, it certainly does, because we also have 2 fewer people on the HR committee. The HR committee doesn't have a quorum. I'm puzzled.
That's not by the choice of the HR committee. It's the choice of the Democratic caucus, who has decided that they are not participating in the HR committee.
Well, I'm not going to speak for the 2 colleagues who have resigned from the HR committee, but I will say
And you
that-
certainly can have substitutes appointed.
Point of order. I thought one person has the floor at a time.
Yeah, I think we're talking cross.
Yeah, I mean, I
purposes
don't, I don't really want to belabor this. The HR committee is in shambles right now for a whole host of reasons. And
It's
well,
in-
Wait a minute, let Mr. Weisbrot finish, please.
And, given the chaos in that committee right now, the lack of even a quorum, I do think it's unusual that an item is being put onto the agenda relating to an RFP. So I think the item, I guess it's on the agenda, but I think it has no relevance, because when a committee has no substance and no legitimacy, frankly, at this point, I think the notion of putting on an RFP for discussion is inappropriate.
And as I reported, it's not for discussion. I did not word the agenda. I was merely reporting that the HR committee voted 4-0-0 for the RFP. And I would also like to address your discourse and chaos and whatever on the HR committee. There is none. I mean, you may feel that way, you may act that way, and certainly the Democratic caucus has acted that way by refusing to seat 2 Democratic members to the HR committee and having two resign for whatever reason. I don't even know why. But, we have our rules and our procedures, and the HR committee rules and the responsibilities of the HR committee are clearly laid out in our reference manual, and everything we have done is consistent with our reference manual.
May I speak up?
Yeah, Mr.
Chairman?
Cal.
Yeah, this was a decision not by the Democratic caucus, but by the 2 Democratic members of the HR committee. It was a personal decision. There was a legal complaint or complaint filed with the legal department about the committee. There's been I guess, a level of tension and friction between the head of our HR department and also the head of our HR committee. And it was just the decision of myself and my colleague, I'll let my colleague speak for himself, that we just didn't feel comfortable that the committee could continue to function properly under a cloud of a legal complaint. And so we submitted a letter, and we respectfully indicated that until such time as this matter is cleared up, that it's difficult for the committee to be performing its function, especially in an atmosphere that's somewhat toxic. So we think it's best to, at this point, to step back and wait for this matter to be resolved. And so that's really the reasoning behind this. It had nothing to do with politics of any kind. It was simply that we didn't feel comfortable serving on a committee upon which there has been a complaint filed.
Okay, can I just correct something?
Mr.
The
Fisher,
complaint-
can I
the complaint
respond as
was-
well, please?
No, hold on a second, because there were certain allegations made there. The complaint was not made against the chair of the HR committee. It was made against the HR committee in total, number one. Number two, there has been no, as far as I can understand, if you come to the meetings, there has been, since the complaint has been filed, There's been no tension, no anything. We have been trying to conduct the business of the town. Third, it's fine that if you wish to resign from the committee, we asked for 2 substitutes, and 2 substitutes were denied for this committee. So to say that there's no politics involved at this point in time is as far as I'm concerned, unwarranted, is not merited.
Mr. Alchek?
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. I just want to add to Mr. Kalb's comments, who I think summed up the situation well. I want to reiterate that this was not a decision by the Democratic caucus. This was a personal decision that Mr. Kalb and I made. And, I want to say 2 things. First, this committee has been dysfunctional for not a few
Out
weeks.
of order, please, point of order. He's saying that this committee has been non-functional.
It's not against anybody.
He's
He's
basically
talking about
imputing the committee as being
I'm sorry,
non-functional.
I believe I have the floor.
I'm sorry, that's point of order. This
don't
is
accept that
totally-
as a point of order.
Oh, my God.
I want to bring you back several months ago when Ms. Vassilotis was yelling at the top of her lungs at Mr. Fisher, the chair, completely unnecessarily. So this committee has been dysfunctional for a long time. It's not a new situation. The other thing I want to say is I, on numerous occasions, tried to broker a truce between the head of HR, Ms. Pepe, and the chair of the HR committee, and several attempts were made in public in the meeting when we requested a time for Ms. Vassilotis, who is the liaison to HR, along with myself, to meet together to try to clear the air. And that was turned down. So one of the central reasons behind Mr. Kalb and my resignation was because there's a catch. We can't resolve any of the differences between the chair of the HR committee and the director of HR if they're not willing to talk. So the situation is untenable, and that's why we resigned from the committee.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, once a complaint is filed, okay, there's an investigation. It does. I mean, you're basically asking somebody to come in and negotiate when there's been a complaint filed. Okay, my exact words to you were, number one, there was a complaint filed against all of us, four individuals, and I did not think it was appropriate, being a lawyer, to engage in discussions while there was an investigation ongoing. That was my exact quote to you. Okay? So again, there's points that you are making that are simply not true, that are being taken out of context. If you had bothered to come to the last meeting, we had an informal discussion with some people in the room, and we had a very productive, informal conversation. It wasn't a meeting. I held the meeting. I adjourned the meeting without a quorum. And the people that were in the room, we had a very cordial and very productive conversation on HR matters, not on this particular matter. So for you to characterize I mean, we worked together to get an RFP together. To characterize it as being dysfunctional is absolutely untrue and is absolutely being done to malign my reputation at this point and I totally reject it. And if you would like to continue this offline, I will, but I will not be having this debate further, and if it does go further, I am leaving the meeting.
Mr. Fisher, I'd just like to respond by saying,
Leaving the meeting. I'm sorry, this is really ridiculous. This is, to say that this is not political, you are absolutely out of your mind.
well, you can, you can leave, you can do whatever you want.
Point of order, express.
I'm done. Yes, okay, well, I am saying that.
Nothing I said was untrue.
Achieve your purpose and your goal,
No,
okay?
I have the floor now. Nothing I said was untrue.
It was.
And it's impossible.
It was.
It's impossible to conduct it's impossible for that committee to function while it's under investigation. So I welcome the investigation, and I welcome clearing the air, and I particularly welcome the opportunity for the town to clear the air with the director of HR. Thank you.
Mr. Alfano.
Motion to adjourn?
We still got minutes. Sorry. We still got minutes to do.
If I could just make one comment. We only started down this path because I didn't understand the process expected for this RFP. I didn't know if by putting it on the agenda in this manner, what was expected. The RFP has not been circulated to other members of the BET. I think this is a very different type of project which would benefit in terms of expediency to get the input before, because this is for us spending money. It's not for hiring an advisor. I think it's a different type of project. I read the HR committee in responsibilities in our reference manual, and while it takes a lead in this in recommendations, I think if we're going to spend consultant money, it's a good process for the full BET to take a look at the RFP before it goes out to bid, which I believe was the intention. So it's a process question. I hope, Mr. Chair, right now that this RFP is not moving forward until some of these issues are resolved.
Okay, and just to clarify, while she denied making the request was made last week. In chatting with Ms. Moriarty about the agenda, I let her know. We had a discussion that it maybe was inadvisable to have this on the agenda for just the reasons that have been demonstrated. I did write Ms. Faciliotis and request that her request to put it on the agenda be withdrawn. She refused. So that's how it got onto the agenda. Those are the facts. Okay, I think we can move on to approval of the minutes. We're just going to, there's been a request that the decision day minutes be put off to the next meeting. So I need a motion. Perhaps it would be acceptable to do the 3 March minutes in one motion. Mr. Selps moves the approval of March 24th, 26th, and 27th. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And Ms. Tarkington has seconded approval of March 24th, 26th, and 27th. Any objection to unanimous consent? Seeing none, that's 11-0-0. I don't have anything to note on the chair side, except I did this afternoon send out a schedule of the RTM meetings. I pretty much just adopted the schedule from last year with the assignments. So if everybody would take a look and let me know if there are any conflicts or, wanting to move anything around. With that, Mr. Alfano.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Mr. Alfano, seconded by Mr. Alchak to adjourn without objection, unanimous consent at 11-0-0 at 9:03, according to my computer clock.
9:02.